Weezy.
Yo.
If you had to choose, bro, Force Awakens, what was your best scene? Or what would you think? What would you think was original about the Force Awakens compared to the prequels and compared to the original trilogy?
Original. I'm being honest. I didn't see anything original in there apart from the initial stopping the blaster bolt with the Force. That's the only thing I could think of. And in terms of that whole film, that I'll class as original.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, you're right. There wasn't many original scenes or a lot to sort of take back from the first film that actually moved me. Not like the Phantom Menace.
But what you say when you say an original, what are you really saying though? Because there was a lot of firsts, isn't it?
You see, like the Phantom Menace, like up until the first 2/3 of the Phantom Menace was kind of basic, apart from the pod racing, where it was a different sort of version of a speeder. We haven't seen that before. I think that was original. In terms of just the basic world building that they tried to do, like they tried to build the world of the sort of Star Wars galaxy where you're seeing different, like for instance, the Trade Federation. Like we've never seen that before. We've never seen that before in the original trilogy. So everything they did, every aspect they touched on wasn't so much groundbreaking in terms of it was like the best thing since sliced bread, but it was something different.
Yeah,
it sort of brought us into the galaxy that bit more. Like we saw the politics of the Imperial Senate, like we got in A New Hope. So now we know what they were discussing. Do you remember that scene in A New Hope when they were in the Imperial boardroom, and one of the Imperial generals was saying, the Imperial Senate will not agree to this. And then Tarkin came in and said, the Imperial Senate will do what we say, basically. Now we know what the Imperial Senate is, and we saw the actual, their version of the Houses of Parliament and how they debate things and how they decide things. So I think that, for me, that was original.
But arguably, that would be easier to do because when they made those films, they had backstory. Like, they had to have backstory in place, innit? Yeah. You can't develop any characters or any story without backstory. Just like the quote you're saying, the same quote you're saying there. That gives them scope to go and show you the Senate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Trade Federation.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
But I still think there were a few original elements in the new thing, innit?
What did you find original in The Force Awakens?
Well, like the fact that they said that it's not just Jedis that are force sensitive. They showed that everyone's force sensitive or got potential to be force sensitive.
Towards the end of the film?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And like the first time you saw the helmet off, by definition, that's original, isn't it? The first time you saw a stormtrooper's helmet off rather.
Yeah.
Even some of the shit Rey did, like no training, but she was able to go toe to toe with like Kylo. Like who else has done that?
For me, that was a negative, but we'll get onto that.
No, whether it's positive or negative, we're talking about whether it's original or not, innit?
Okay, fair enough.
We're not talking about, I'm not saying I liked it, but if you're just stripping it down to what was original, the first time a being with no training was able to manipulate the Force, but almost on instinct, isn't it?
Yeah, that was probably
original, I guess. Yeah.
Kind of original.
And even the way he manufactured his lightsaber, like, we'd never seen nothing like that before. Some Frankenstein lightsaber, bro.
It's like a broadsword.
Yeah, the long shanks. Yeah. It came with a long shanks.
Even though it was erratic, it was like.
It was a refined design.
Yeah, it was in flux. Yeah. Like the blade itself was in flux. It wasn't a sort of solid beam like the original. Yeah. That was all.
Yeah. His saber was original.
Yeah,
definitely.
His saber. I'll say that.
The only reason I say that it's not that I didn't find it. Only thing I thought was that one scene original because like elaborating on the whole film, it felt like it was just a sort of rehash of The Force Awakens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, The Force Awakens, A New Hope.
New Hope.
Yeah. Same kind of same
template.
Whole theme of the film felt like it was
same kind of overarching plot, but they have to do that to establish the new characters and all that, innit?
In terms of, I don't want to sort of start talking negatively about the Force Awakens, but apart from
like you can't wait to.
Well, it's because there's nothing else, mate. It's a for me. It's a struggle. Like apart from Kylo Ren, seeing the wreckage of a Star Destroyer, I was sort of like, okay, yeah, this is the remnants of war. I like that aspect of there's been a galactic war and there's signs all over the place, whether you like it or not. There's remnants of a galactic war. What I didn't like is the way they didn't really describe for me how the Force, what do they call it, the First Order. If the rebellion beat the Empire in Return of the Jedi, how can they allow the First Order, number one, to amass so many new stormtroopers, and number two, so many new starships? Like, what happened? How comes the Galactic Senate wasn't sort of brought back together or realigned, or where was the prevention to say, yes, this is not going to happen again? I think that should have come from either Luke or Leia, who was active in the field. Like, I think that was one of the biggest plot holes in The Force Awakens. They didn't go into detail as to how the First Order came back into fruition and how they had so much dominance over the galaxy.
I think every trilogy's got evidence of the Resistance being naive like that, though, man. Just when they think they beat them, like the Empire's got contingency plans, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? They've always got a contingency plan. Like the Death Star was a contingency plan, and they had just in case they lost that battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then even in the last one, which we'll probably cover in a bit, but if you're going to be technical, I guess they could always say that Palpatine
was working
in the shadows, isn't it? You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
So if you want to be devil's advocate, innit?
Okay, so Force Awakens, any memorable quotes at all from that film? The first film from the last
Struggling
trilogy?
to remember it now.
And this is my point. Like,
I'll tell you what's memorable. Ray!
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Ray!
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finn was a gal fool.
Yeah. The dude was whipped without
crutches
beating.
full,
Like,
man.
it for me, yeah, they made him moist straight off the bat. Like, when he was sweating in the desert, you knew he was going
It
to
was
be
one of
moist.
the biggest disappointments, man. For such a talented actor
Yeah.
to be like,
Yeah.
I was gassed for him to get that role.
Me
and
too, because I didn't expect him to be.
Yeah.
I was thinking the black youth from Attack the Block is in
Yeah, man.
Star Wars. Like,
See what I'm saying? And then the whole way, obviously we'll talk about it later. Whole way his story arc spanned out. I don't know, man. It's a bit of a letdown.
So, for instance, you see like Phantom Menace, like in terms of quotes. Like, one of my favorite quotes in the Phantom Menace is Qui-Gon Jinn when he said, "I don't know who he was, but he was well trained in the Jedi arts." Like Phantom Menace gave me something. Even if you didn't like the first 2/3 of the film, you had the fight scene at the end, which for me, which we'll get to in a moment, but for me, literally launched the new trilogy. After you saw that, you thought, yes, right. You saw a new type of lightsaber, a new type of Sith who was moving like a ninja, a Sith that could handle 2 Jedi by himself. Those sort of things is what I needed to see from The Force Awakens to bring me into the new trilogy. I didn't get that from Force Awakens at all, whatsoever. They kind of teased, but again, it was a tease, basically. That's how I see it. Would you say The Force Awakens was for the hardcore Star Wars fans, or would you say it was for commercial basis just to sort of launch a new franchise? Weezy.
It's for the Disney kids.
Basically, yes, I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
But they didn't give. They didn't give like the original fans enough, man. Look, the whole shambles with Luke appearing right at the end. Like I swear they're all meant to throughout the whole trilogy, they're all meant to like appear, and we're meant to see them have their own story arcs, like the original.
That's right.
The original cast. Obviously, Han was in it for a part of the film, but you're meant to see them all together, innit?
I take it back. I'm not gonna lie. I was gassed when I saw Han Solo get back in the Falcon with Chewbacca in it. I ain't gonna lie, innit? Even though they didn't do much.
Chewie, we're home.
Chewie, we're home.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I have to draw for a quote for that film, that's probably it. That's probably it. All right, wrapping up The Force Awakens, because clearly we ain't got much to say about it.
No, you know, another scene, now you just mentioned Han Solo, and another scene was when Solo tried Chewie's gun. Let me try that.
Yeah.
This whole time I didn't realise when I had a cannon.
Do you know?
I actually forgot about it.
Just to cut back, some bits that I did like about it. I did like how, I ain't gonna lie, see when Poe was flying the X-Wing, you could see he was a heavy fighter pilot. Yeah,
he was whipping it.
Yeah, the X-Wings, they were
It's the overall disappointment that makes you forget them little gems, innit?
Yeah, there was little bits.
I think that's why overall, man's so disappointed.
That's how I summarize this first film completely.
Because there were a few little gems, like even the quote. I know you're gonna forget this quote, but I know you like that quote when what's the old woman say? What's that old woman?
Who?
Is it Kaz or Mars? No, what's her name?
Maz
Kanata.
I like that Wookiee.
Yeah.
He was busting up with that quote. He loved that quote. Like, so
the effect for the Wookiee. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, you forget all them things because overall you're disappointed, just like us.
She was in all three, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. Okay, wrapping up the Force Awakens. Time is moving. If you had to give Force Awakens a Star Wars rating, not a rating in terms of every other film, in terms of inside the Star Wars universe, how would you rate the Force Awakens out of 10? Easy.
Can I give it like a initial rating and my overall rating?
Initial rating before you saw it and initial rating afterwards.
Initial rating, when I came out of the cinema, I gave it a solid 8, even though I remember was having a lot of discussions about where it's going to move from there. But when I first came out of the cinema, I gave it like an 8.5. Like I was still blown away by the whole, just going back into the Star Wars world, the effects and everything, just seeing it all on the big screen.
Yes.
But then obviously, after, I don't know what you call it, thinking about it, I guess, I don't know, it probably dropped down to like a 7.
Right, so it dropped 1 point from an 8 to a
7.
7.
8.5.
8.5 is your final.
Was my initial, and it dropped down to like a 7.
Okay, so we just giving out a 7. Anthony,
I don't know,
in terms of before, I know before you didn't really see much hype about it. You sort of went into the thing without sort of knowing the plot lines or knowing the.
Blood is Star Wars, man. For me, whenever it's Star Wars, as soon as you see that scrolling yellow writing, my head's thinking 10 in it. 10, no matter what.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? By the end of the film, we all panned a lot. We panned a lot of it in it, but I was still holding on to a little hope because there was still a chance that they were Jedi twins. Man, still had the question of who her parents were, so it wasn't ruined yet, innit? It wasn't ruined yet. There was still optimism in my thoughts in it. So when I came, I was probably the same as Weezy. I was probably giving it a strong 8. I was probably giving it a strong 8, man, because I was hoping they were going to go down the right path of it, innit?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Based on the trailers and the anticipation, seeing the brother wield the lightsaber, my expectations was a 10 also. But I walked out there with I was optimistic because I thought, okay, this is the first film. Yeah, there's not that many memorable moments like the Phantom Menace gave us, but I was still gassed to see what they're gonna do next. So I anticipated a 10 based on the trailers, but I left there with probably the same 7.5 or 8.